Viagra Boys, Swedish post-punk band that have been getting a lot of attention over the past couple of years, particularly with the lead up to this new album here, Welfare Jazz, which has had a few singles that have gained them a lot more traction than I think their previous album did, and you can see why. They're definitely an appealing post-punk revivalist type band. They have some similar qualities to other bands that have managed to gain a lot of traction over the past few years. I think there's this newfound love for these kinds of bands. I guess, you know, bands that are pulling from certain other bands from different eras and different styles and different sounds, and kind of blending them together in a more modern context. You've got Black Country New Road, you've got Black Midi, you've got bands like Protomata, the list goes on. There's always an appetite for this kind of thing, and I think even though, you know, some bands might not be the most original in the world, they will always find a place in many people's hearts. To me, that kind of applies to Viagra Boys. I mean, they're not exactly totally unoriginal, but I do think that they're still a band that's solid at what they do, but they're not exactly blowing me away with what they're giving me. They're just pretty good at doing a style and doing a sound. It's enjoyable. It's sometimes even, you know, a little funny, tongue-in-cheek, but I think there's still something missing from this album. First track, tongue-in-cheek, the lyrics ain't nice. His delivery has a bit of like a sarcastic tone to it. It's a pretty fun track. It's got a nice little groovy rhythm to it. It's a good way to start the album. I mean, if there's any track on this album that you want to start the album with, it's got to be this one, because it just kind of sets the tone well. You get exactly what this band is going for immediately, and it's a pretty catchy track. I like the way throughout this album too that the vocalist manages to deliver in a way that, you know, shows a bit of variety. Like on Toad, there's this kind of like rock and roll sort of thing going on. It definitely reminds me of like some like late 50s, early 60s rock and roll artist. I don't want to say Elvis, but something like that, of that era. He's just kind of got this weird tone to his voice. I don't know if he's kind of mocking it or he's just actually just going for it and just letting loose. Either way, I think it works. Into the Sun definitely feels like it's coming out of the 80s post-punk era, because there's a bit of synth work going on here. Kind of reminds me of some like new wave twist with the track. Again, it's pretty good. There's nothing really popping out though that makes this track stand out in a really outstanding way. It's just kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like ticking the boxes, but it's not really going beyond that. A lot of the tracks do feel like that, where it's just kind of like doing the bare minimum of what you'd expect from this genre, and perhaps if you haven't heard a lot of it, maybe it would impress you more, but I think when you've heard more of it from even modern day to when this genre was thriving at its best, you probably will scrutinize this a bit harsher, because you will be like, well, I've heard things like this before. I just think they need a stronger angle. I mean, they try throwing in little quirky things with tracks like Secret Canine Agent. The lyrics are a bit odd and strange, and there's some, you know, random jokes about little, you know, different dogs, you know, the beagle reference, obviously. Some humorous, mildly humorous lines, but it's not enough to really separate them and make them stand out in a way that I've, you know, ever heard before. It's weird. It's a weird album because it's enjoyable, but at the same time, it's also like something's missing. I think the concept of girls and boys could have been executed a bit stronger too. I do like the part where he says, you know, trips, and then his vocals go all weird, like he is having like some kind of acid trip. That's a funny little part, but the rest of the lyrics aren't really that exciting or impressive. It's just pretty okay. The last two tracks, however, it definitely loses me the most. So I mean, he's going for this kind of like country, outlaw country twang to his voice with the track To the Country, and then In Spite of Ourselves, which is a John Prine cover, which I am all for. Any John Prine worship, any John Prine I guess appreciation, I'm all for that, because John Prine was pretty damn great, but I think the cover itself just falls a bit flat. The vocals here don't really line up with what they're trying to do. Like something just feels off. It's not quite landing very well at all. I think closing out your album to appreciate such a legend is not the worst thing in the world. Like, I'm not mad at this. I just think I wanted to like it more than I did. and it just doesn't really land too well. So yeah, overall I probably am being a bit harsher than I should be for this one. I mean, I didn't mention Six Shooter actually, but this track is actually great. Like the instrumental here is fantastic. It's got some really great jazz elements thrown in, kind of like some weird avant-garde type jazz with the like farty horns that kind of blare out at points. It's a great little track, this one. Interestingly, the only track where you don't get a prominent vocal feature, but they managed to deliver everything else in such a great way that you actually don't mind the vocals being missing. Not to say that the vocalist is a bad feature of this band, but I did find it quite interesting that this was one of the best tracks and he isn't even here at all. But still, like, overall, it's solid. They're doing everything well. It's just like not enough to wow me. I don't know, maybe I'm being a bit harsh here. I think there will be a lot of people out there that love this, but I think there'll be people out there that agree with me too, that it's good for what it is, but that's kind of where it ends. 6 out of 10 from me. I do like it overall. It's pretty solid. Interested to see where they go from here. I might have to check out their previous album too, because this is their second album, and I will be honest, I haven't heard their first one, so I should probably do that. But thank you for watching this review. Do hope you have a good day. Thank you again. Subscribe if you haven't already. That'd be great. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do have a good day, and goodbye. Goodbye.